is it likely that an empire can rise without his aid? And I would encourage you, I would beg you, not to give up praying for America. Most of us that live here believe that God has raised this nation up for the good of mankind and for His honor and glory. And that's where we need to put our trust, is in that one who can save us. Politics is not going to save us. Our own wisdom can't even save us. It's not by any genius of man that America has been raised among the nations. It's simply because of our obedience to God that He has raised us up as a free and independent nation. Now it's up to us to restore that and to keep it. Would you pray with me, please? Father, we open this first meeting of the Spokane Tea Party Patriots asking for your blessing. And if I may, I would dedicate this gathering, this group, and our efforts to bring you honor and glory and to restore what we believe that you have inaugurated with the birth of this nation. Lord, you've given us instances in the book of Psalms where a king asked that you would destroy the enemies by their own counsels. Lord, I ask that you would do that in our day. Lord, destroy the enemies of what you have begun here by their own counsels. Bring them down. Cause them, Lord, to lose any support that they have. And take the blinders off of our countrymen, Lord, that they would see the truth which will set them free. We thank you, Father, for your many blessings. We ask that they would continue. Strengthen us to do what you would have us to do as individuals and as the Spokane Tea Party Patriots, to continue your blessings on this land. Amen.
Amen.
We're looking at the flag right here on the screen. Would you stand with me for the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Randall.
There we go.
Oops. So I do want y'all to know that Northwest Grassroots is not going away. But we have taken on the additional banner of the Tea Party Patriots. And we haven't quite figured out how all that's going to turn out, and that's one reason that you're all here this evening. We want you guys to set the direction in how this is all going to happen. Now, the Tea Party, is a movement. It's not a political party. And, that's something we sort of forget. People talk, well, maybe they can be a third party, maybe this, maybe that. But the Tea Party is a movement, and they focus on values and issues. And so I just want to briefly go over the values that they hold. And the first core value of the Tea Party is fiscal responsibility. And I think we all know what that means. I mean, let's spend within the limits that are set forth in the Constitution. Balance the budget using current revenues, not potential revenues. And this goes for the state and the city and the county, as well as it does our federal government. They dream up all kinds of different ways that money's going to be coming into the treasury, and they have it spent before it's even gets into their coffers. It's crazy. And, the words fiscal responsibility are used by everybody. So you really need to look at actions. It's not the words they're using, it is the actions. It is a saying that sort of grabs attention. It's like I pointed out to a whole group that right now one of the sort of statements that the media are pushing right now is we have the end of the age or the era of austerity.
Hilarious.
And I mean, they're just saying it over and over and over again. And I want you to know, when a person hears something enough times, they figure it's true. So fiscal responsibility is fiscal responsibility. It's not just a slogan. And we want smaller government operating within its means. We do not need the huge government that we have, and it would be so nice to start seeing things roll back instead of just adding on and adding on. I got to say, 20, 30 years ago, I used to say, we should have a law that if you're going to pass a new law, you got to take 5 off the books. And it would have been so nice if we'd done that 20, 30 years ago. Now we need to take about 100 off the books if you're going to pass something new. The second is constitutionally limited government. And that's huge, but I'm really sorry to say that not a lot of people understand our Constitution. Most importantly, I don't think our politicians understand our Constitution. And and they need to understand it, because how in the world can you govern within those limits if you don't know the Constitution? And if you don't know that it is a Constitution that was written for all of us throughout time. It's not a living Constitution. It doesn't change because we have Twitter and Facebook. It is the Constitution. And to keep we the people as the authority of our representative republic. And guys, I've got to ask you, how come, whose fault is it that we the people are not the authority of our representative republic? It's our fault. And we need to take that authority back and never become a pure democracy or a socialist republic. And something that I know all of you in this room know that we are a republic, but what is it? It's a democratic form of government based on laws that were voted in by the majority. So when we have laws passed, it is by the majority. Sometimes it's a 50+1, sometimes it's a super with 66 2/3. But the laws are passed by a majority, and they protect the rights of the minority. That's what's different about a republic. It's not majority rule. It's that our rights are protected by our laws. And so when you're looking at majority rule, you're really looking at minority protection. And, we can talk about today's instances, and, obviously we do have a lot of minority protections. They were voted in by the majority, and they protect the minorities. And democracies de-incentivize the people to be productive. And one of our founders told us that once your people learn that they can start voting in all these goodies for themselves, pretty soon you're going to lose your republic. And we're pretty darn close to it, if not there. The amount of entitlements that we have going are pretty crazy. So the third value is free markets. What have you lost, John?
I lost my notes with the...
Those are my notes.
Well, we both got notes like that.
Well, those are mine.
Maybe you have all of them. You ought to hear us in the office.
Okay, there you go.
See?
I didn't know he even knew I had notes.
How do you think I know what to do?
It's free markets. And, that really means trade without government interference. But it's not the trade treaties and pacts that we keep passing. The North American Free Trade Agreement, the new ones coming up with the Trans-Pacific Pact and things that way. In one of those, and I'm not sure if it's the TPP or the other, is that there are 29 chapters, and only 5 chapters pertain to trade. And the other chapters pertain to global warming, to carbon credit exchange, to just a whole lot of that kind of stuff. And it takes any disputes that an American business person might have participating in these trade agreements, they have to be handled in an international court, and they have no recourse at all in American courts. That is not what our people want. Fortunately, trade agreements have to be, they're basically treaties, and they do have to be ratified by our Senate. But hey, they do crazy stuff, and you get sold a bill of goods. So really look in, especially those, the Trans-Pacific Partnership is sort of the North American free trade agreement on steroids. Since it didn't work real well, now we're going to bring in all the Asia-Pacific countries and put the whole blob together. And but they're just getting crazier and crazier and crazier, and a lot of it has to do with really a new world or a one world type of law that we would all be following. So be careful when you hear about the free trade things. Do look into them and check them out for yourselves. So today is the 5th anniversary of the Tea Party. And this was the day that they first marched on Washington, D.C. And they were protesting the TARP, remember the TARP back in 2008, and the stimulus. How much money went out of our treasury for those two programs? I mean, it was crazy. And did we have it? No. And so do you think we should have marched on Washington as well as all the other demonstrations that were across the country? Absolutely. And these are just the marches on Washington, D.C., but what you got to remember is every time they had one, other areas had one, Spokane had them, that kind of thing. So tax day, great day to protest about high taxes and big government. We don't need those taxes if our government's smaller.
Cecily, estimated that crowd from 500,000, depending on who the press was, to 2.5 million people, and the Parks Department people said that they'd never seen a demonstration ever like that before.
Yeah.
There were so many people, so I'd have to assume.
So, but if you talk to the media, it's 500,000, right? And so again in September, promoting fiscal responsibility, and then of course along came our health insurance reform, and there were a lot of protests about that.
Yeah. Cecily, I have to say this. I know some people that feel themselves are extremely, extremely conservative, and they wanted to bail out.
That's right.
Maybe they are.
They were convinced that if we didn't bail out, they listened to everything that they were told, that the whole thing would come tumbling down. And I mean, what's better, spending money you don't have or having the whole thing come tumbling down? So, it's just how much research do you do and who do you listen to? So, it's said that the Tea Party has tactics, but they don't really have strategy. They demonstrate, they wave signs, they do this and that, but they just really don't have a strategy to change things. I'm not clicking there. And so, I really want to talk about, did the Tea Party make a difference? So when you take a look at the 2010 midterm elections, do you think a pickup of 63 seats of the U.S. House of Representatives made a difference? Yeah. How about 6 seats of the Senate? Wouldn't it have been nice if it was 8 or 10? We gained 680 seats in state legislative races, and 29 state governorships are controlled by Republicans. Now I've got to tell you, Tea Partiers aren't really Republicans, but they can more affiliate with the platform of the Republicans. But the membership of Tea Parties nationwide are about 30% Democrat, 30% Republican, 40% Independent. And it's really because of the core principles that are supported and educated and taught. And so when you're looking at changing the legislature, obviously you're looking at people who understand that kind of language. So this is just a listing of Tea Party members of Congress, and it's pretty darn impressive. Pretty crazy. And you'll see that Flake from Arizona is not listed on that. Now, Flake was a guy that, talked the Tea Party talk. And he bamboozled people. And he was, quote, a Tea Partier, and then he turned out not to be. So again, the voters need to be extremely careful. You need to listen to people. You need to watch what they've done to really determine who they are. You can't just sit there and listen to some politician standing up there going blah, 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 because I assure you he'll be telling you this group one set of and another group something else. They speak what they want you to hear. Janine.
I don't see Ted Cruz up there.
Second from the bottom.
Just the bottom. There we go. Oh, we're not center. He's in the... Is Washington up there? Oh, are you kidding? Where's Kathy McMorris?
Sorry about that. So in 2012, we were all really disappointed. Or not all of us, but some of us were disappointed because the Obama administration stayed in control. They stayed in power. And yet in 2012, when you really look at what happened, the majority in the House was maintained. There were thousands of local and state offices are held by Tea Party members. The number of Republican governors increased by 1 to 30. And the Tea Party Patriots actually helped stop Scott Walker in that recall election. They activated the Wisconsin people. They brought in 150 people from out of state. They knocked on approximately 16,500 doors and distributed 150,000 pieces of literature. And they did that all in 3 weeks. And I think it was a beautiful thing.
And let's understand too, Tea Party Patriots is a 501c4. They cannot represent a candidate or a campaign. They have to work on issues. So the issues that they spoke to everybody about was the right to work and the big strong hand of the unions. And really people were tired of it, and that's what flipped the vote. It was talking about the unions, and Scott Walker was opposed to them. So when you have the right issue, the candidate's going to arise. That's the point.
And then that bottom one, 24 GOP trifectas. And what that means is you have 24 states that have a Republican governor, a Republican House, and a Republican Senate, which is pretty darn cool. Now that flipped. Before the 2010 election, there were 8 Republican and 16 Democrat trifectas. So this has been pretty cool. And there's some of them that are actually what they call super trifectas. They actually have the majority of a 66 2/3% vote in the Senate and the House. And I've got to tell you, just because they are, quote, a Republican trifecta does not mean that they are governing the way that we as Tea Party people would like them to. They do some pretty crazy things too. So again, don't get blinded by that R. However, again, they do seem to align a little more closely, but you got to be careful. So when you look at the Senate, you can see that we have 2 independents there, and what we've got in the Senate are 53 Democrats, 2 independents, and 45 GOP. I believe that the 2014 election is going to be extremely important, and it would be so nice to take a wonderful, wonderful majority in that Senate. And I think that's something that we need to work on. And I don't know where you're going to work on it, because we got Patty Murray and Cantwell. So, but we can sure see what we can do with friends that we have in other states and things that way. In the House, we've got 199 Democrats, 232 GOP, and 4 vacancies.
And nothing to stop doing that.
Which were, okay, and that's what I want to talk to you about. That's 435 seats. So I want you to think, how many votes does Kathy McMorris Rogers have?
1.
So she's 1 out of 435. So why in the world are we fiddling around worrying about the federal government as much as we do when we can have far more impact on local issues? So you change your commissioner. How many commissioners do we have in the county of Spokane?
3.
So you change your commissioner, you've changed 1 vote out of 3. That's a heck of a lot better out of 1 out of 435. You know, we've got to quit it's way easier to look at the big picture. It only comes around once every 4 years, but it does not impact our local community. So what we've done is well, let's just talk about the issues that you're going to be hearing about, and you guys can probably help me with the 2014 issues. Those are ones I made up. But in 2010, the issues that really people were running on were the economic conditions, immigration reform, and passage of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. That was passed in June of 2010, before the elections. They knew they had to do it, and as Peggy said, you got to vote for it, or yeah. So you know what's in it. You know, pass the darn thing so you can read it and figure out what's in it. And that was, I mean, that was just wrong. So 2014, what's changed? We still have our economic conditions and policies. You're going to be hearing a lot about the minimum wage. Washington State is one of the higher minimum wage states. I believe it is the highest, and I believe we're at $9.25, except for city of SeaTac. And you guys know, I want you to know this, the only people that are impacted by that $15 an hour wage in SeaTac are non-union workers. The unions all got an exemption. So, I mean, the whole thing's really messed up. Oh, it is. It's, you know, and they never report that part, you know. Obviously, we have the health problem, the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, or whatever oxymoron we want to call it there. And obviously, we have rising premiums, we have rising deductibles, we have co-pays that are rising. The implementation stinks. People are losing coverage. Terrible impact on employment. And by passing that off and delaying a lot, we aren't going to see those impacts for this 2014 election. All of that was done for political reasons. So,
Wasn't that the No Care Act?
yeah. Good one. And then, of course, we have the scandals. And unfortunately, and you can see I put them in sort of a declining order. NSA, the gathering of information on American citizens is something that is outraging most every American citizen. So that is really one that we need to be concentrating on. The IRS, not quite so much, because they only targeted conservative groups. And there's actually a IRS regulation that they floated out there. They put it out right after the day after Thanksgiving, so you don't notice it. And the last day for comment was today. And what it does is totally hamstring 501c4 organizations so that they can't do anything so many 30 days before an election, and they can't do this 60 days before, and they can't, you know, and it just absolutely neuters them. And hopefully there has been enough comment by the public to have them look at that. But it was, you're just going, there is definitely a war between the people and the IRS. I mean, I'm all for just absolutely revising the tax code into something simple that we can all understand and get rid of the darn people, but you know, that's, I guess, not going to happen in my lifetime.
Well, and I'd just like to point out, I didn't do that comment thing because I saw that as just a target for audits. They're just going to take those names and audit everybody on them.
Well, I guess we can all think that way, but we have got to stand up.
Oh, absolutely.
We've got to. And if they want to, if you aren't doing anything wrong, then let them audit you.
You don't know if you're not doing anything wrong, is the problem.
Well.
Sorry, Cecily, go ahead.
Yeah. So we made up a sheet there of local focus issues. You've got them on your table there. And we talk about constitutional issues, education, Second Amendment gun rights is big in our area. Immigration is unfortunately getting big. Local and state legislation, property rights, health issues, there's a lot of things going on. So when you look at the Constitution, what we're hoping to do with this is really find point people that understand the Constitution, that watch what the Supreme Court does, watch what the Washington State Legislature are doing, and keep us informed. Because I just don't think it helps a whole lot if we gripe after something passes. We need to know ahead of time so we can be having our voices heard so it has some impact. Anybody can wave signs of protest after it's done, but the idea of being able to be ahead of the curve is, to me, a lot more important. So we need to figure out a way that we can do that.
So if there's anybody here, while we're going through this phase of this program tonight, these are all listed up here, and you'll notice on your paperwork it'll say down at the bottom of that section, possible point people. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for point people. As an example, Lori Rogers raised her hand and said that she wanted to take on Common Core. And any of you here that know Lori know that that would be a perfect person to take on Common Core. So as we're going through these, you know, either on the back of the membership application that we put out there for you, we've got these listed out. You can check that off and say that's something I'm interested in doing. Or you could just bolt it out here. That's what we're here for tonight, is to find out who wants to step up and take on these issues and be a point person to the Tea Party, your Tea Party, for doing that. That's the deal.
And so I've just listed some of the things that have impacted us all, and they just sort of happened without us really knowing about it till after they had. The NDAA, NSA, Agenda 21 stuff, it's just crazy. I talked a little about the IRS proposed regulations, so those are still, I mean, like discussion ended today, so that's something. And then the Second Amendment. Now, I haven't heard as much out of Olympia this year as we did last year on the gun rights. We did have quite a large hearing on the registration, but they haven't done anything with it yet. And the registration, as you all know, as far as I feel, and I think probably most of you feel, is that by registering your guns, it just gives them an address to go to when they want to take the guns. Yeah.
It's all about privacy.
So the initiative process is huge in Washington State. It is one way we can get our voices heard. It's huge. 1325 is on the back table there, and I have quite a few blank sheets also. So if any of you are in groups where you feel that you can get the sheets filled out, take a couple blanks with you and get them filled out and submitted. But what 1325 does, how many of you have in the past signed an initiative to have require that the state of Washington requires a 2/3 majority in order to pass legislation that raises taxes? Yeah, it's crazy. And it's my understanding that the courts finally told the initiative gatherers that you know, you're going to have to go for a constitutional amendment to the Washington State Constitution, just get this thing placed into law. So I think, you know, we have Jack and Barb here, and they work with Voters Want More Choices. Their son, of course, Mike Fagan, and Tim Eyman. And they did something extremely brilliant on this initiative. So we know we're going to have enough signatures, especially when all of you sign it in this room. And so we'll get those signatures submitted. There'll be plenty. And it requires it to be put on the ballot so that all the voters in Washington can vote for it. Well, if for the last 6 years they've been voting for this thing, you know as well as I do it's going to pass. However, how are we going to ensure that our legislators put it on the ballot? The clause in there is that if they don't put it on the ballot, the state sales tax will reduce from 6.5% to 5.5%, which will cost the state of Washington over $1 billion. Do you think they're going to put it on the ballot? Right. So the initiative is back there, and I really do encourage you to sign it.
And they just had House Bill 2552.
I'm going to talk about that right now. So we have 2552, and this is a bill that the Democrats were really pushing to regulate signature gathering on initiatives in the state of Washington. And so it's really one of those things that is going to squash our free speech in the state of Washington. Well, as you all know, we have a newly appointed representative in the 4th District. And he doesn't do his due diligence too well. And he gets a letter from Don Benton that reads in part, HB 2552 is one of the most oppressive big government anti-initiative bills that ever tried. And you voted for it. Even the ACLU opposes it. Remember the words of the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Please check the details in the bill. I was on the receiving end of the same rhetoric as you, claiming it was a small change and that it protected private property rights. Not true. It's filled with a laundry list of burdens that simply cannot be justified. And so that's what Benton sent to him, and the other 12 Republicans that voted for it. One has since recounted. So again, as I said, we need to be ahead of the curve. We need action versus reaction. And that means we need to be watching our city councils, our county commissions, the judicial things, and the state legislation. And that's something we're going to have to put our heads together and figure out, how are we going to do that? How are we going to know when they just passed another one that I don't think Leonard should have voted yes on, but I haven't been able to go in and dig into it a lot. And it really is just authorizing a study, but unfortunately it sounds like a study that's sort of, you've all heard of carbon trading, so you trade this for that. It sounds like water trading. And so it's not a good deal, and you know, he voted yes on that thing too. And although it's only a study at this point, you know as well as I do, you start a study, it's not good.
So we need somebody that can watch votes.
Well, no, we need to get them before the votes. We need to know when they're in committee and when they look as if they're coming out of committee. Yes, Dave?
Regardless of what the outcome of the study is, it costs taxpayers money to do it.
Absolutely. And like Julian said, it's a foot in the door. So it's not a good deal, you know, and unfortunately, I've got to tell you, the only people that voted against that were the 5 that are on the Washington Freedom Agenda.
The dream team.
Yeah.
Yep, the dream team. Yeah, and it's sort of like everybody else is glazed over. They don't really get what they're voting on. It's only a study. Crazy. So anyway, we need to be proactive versus reactive. We need to get there ahead of time and have a voice that's loud. And the reason we're going to have a voice that's loud is that when we do public events and demonstrations and things, we need to have thousands of people out there. So when maybe a small contingent goes over to Olympia, or one of you pick up the phone representing this group of radical thousands of people over here, they're going to pay attention. So it's really important that we grow this to be a lot of people, but we also need point people that have a fire in their belly about some of these topics so that they can stay on top and be feeding the rest of us. And Deborah Goodwin's here. She's going to help with the website, so it'll be a great place to disperse information and things that way. And, you know, there's a lot we can do. But again, it can't be done by 1 or 2 people. It's got to be a joint effort. So another big deal we have is our border security and immigration. And you know, there's some simple things we could do in this country that would really help solve our immigration problem. If you do E-Verify, they aren't going to work. And if they don't work, they're going to go back to where they came from. But do we support, do we fund, do we use E-Verify? Absolutely not. We need to finish the fence. The fence is not applicable in all areas of the border. I mean, some of it's a river, some of it's this, some of it's that. But it's a force multiplier. If you have a good fence in a lot of the areas, then you can put more border patrol in the areas that you don't have a fence.
Israel can testify to that.
Yeah, I mean,
Cecily, I might also add to get rid of the anchor baby citizenship.
Yeah.
They did in Canada.
there's a lot of laws that we can look at. You know, there really are. that department, the Border Patrol, Border Security, is deliberately underfunded.
Yes.
They, it's just one of the things that, and, it's not good.
This is the game.
Yeah.
This is the game they play. They don't enforce existing laws, so they can make up a bunch of new ones.
Right.
And somehow enfold us into slavery. That's what
An effective visa program. There are many, 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 many illegals here in this country that came here legally. They came over here on a visa. We don't track them. They don't go home. We don't know where they are. They learn how to fly airplanes and run into the trade center.
My suggestion is put FedEx on them.
Yeah.
They can track my package right away.
I like that.
Yes.
And once they're deported, we shouldn't allow them to re-enter. It's just crazy. I mean, if we just did that, we wouldn't have near the problem that we've got. And I know Gary Edwards over here is very, very concerned about immigration because he's seen the impact in California. Fred and Vod Hill returned up here from Arizona. They have a heck of a problem. Judy's from Texas and still has family in Texas. Those border states are just absolutely dying from our illegal immigration. And like Laura said, we've got, the baby drop that, all of a sudden you're a citizen and now you're a citizen, so your mom and dad can stay and hey, let's, it's just crazy. We are doing stupid stuff. Illegal immigration is crazy. Yes, Gary?
Oh, we have a cat that, in order that we don't lose it, they put a little chip on her neck. And I think with illegal immigrants, anytime they want to go somewhere for a service, they get scanned. Oh, you've been sent out before. You get a special room to sit in while you get the bus.
Well,
I just have to jump in. We don't want to start chipping.
no.
We really don't. I mean,
No chipping.
If they're going to do it to them, they're going to do it to me, and I want to sit on my butt and not have to know where I'm at. Okay.
Yeah. So it's. But like Judge Richards says, if Federal Express can track stuff, we sure should be able to track our visa people. And it just seems silly that we don't. It just seems silly. I mean, I don't think there's a real explanation for it.
There is an explanation for it. It's a government agency that's trying to do it. FedEx is not a government agency.
Right to work. You're going to be hearing a lot about right to work in the state of Washington. It's going to be a very, very big uphill battle. But it would eliminate the compulsory unionism. We are the fourth. I didn't know this. We're the fourth most unionized state in the nation. Crazy. And wouldn't it be nice that employees were free to choose whether they wanted to be in the union or whether not? And you talk to some of these teachers, they don't have a choice. And they can be out of the union, but they must pay the dues. Crazy.
Let me share a story. When Cecily and I first got involved in all of this, back when Envision Spokane was around, we went to our first meeting in the Valley, where it used to be the Spokane Valley Action Club. And Nancy McLaughlin was there. And there was an initiative that Jack and Mike were working on that had passed. It was on the ballot. So I don't remember the number because that was way back before I could think straight. But it was the one that required that Washington State could not grow more than 1%. Do you remember that one, Jack? Okay.
Property tax.
Property tax. Is that what a property tax one? Okay.
No, we have that one.
No,
In
that's
fact,
a different one.
It had something to do with the city budget, John, because she was in the city.
Right. So she was city council, and I spoke to her, and she introduced herself and said, "Oh, I'm glad to meet you." I said, this initiative, and I can't remember the number, but I said, it's on ballot. I said, we got to make sure that passes. And she says, oh, we can't do that. And I said, well, why not? I mean, we really need to roll this thing back and get things under control. And she says, well, you haven't seen what our budget is. Yeah. And I said, well, tell me. She says, well, it's 80% labor. I said, oh, you mean union labor? And she said, well, yeah. And I said, well, then your job, Nancy, is to bankrupt the city and cancel those contracts. Now, I didn't realize that she turned white. She just, that was not the answer she thought she was going to hear. And it was a couple years later. I mean, these things just don't flop out, but I found out a couple years later that you know, if I won the big lottery and I had all the money in the world, and if I wanted to go buy 100,000 acres and call it Charleston, that if I made that into a city, I have to unionize that in Washington State. That's an RCW. It's a Washington State law. That's crazy. So you see, that's what we have to be looking at. We have to attack that. And I think right to work as a principle, just like it was in Wisconsin, is something we need to drive on. I think we get traction on there, and we need to force these unions back into their places, because that's wrong. And it also demonstrated to me this mumbo-jumbo gumhead philosophy of, you know, well, we've got it, now we've got to work in it. I mean, you know, that's crazy. Nancy was crazy to tell me that that was the answer. I mean, she should have looked at that and said, yeah, we really need to do something. But that's not the mentality there.
Now, something that we've really got to be careful of is the media really introduces right to work as it's big business, and they're anti-worker. And so it's all the big business people are just really trying to get after these little guys. You got to watch out for the little guys, et cetera, et cetera. So it is how the media is putting it out there, and it's a subject that if you're going to feel as if it's something that you want to learn more about, you need to get your P's and Q's in order and know how to talk about it. Yes, Laura?
Yeah, Franklin Roosevelt, this is what I saw on the internet, and I also heard it on, I think, TBN or station.
Louder.
That Franklin Roosevelt was opposed to a public sector collective bargaining. In other words, he was opposed to public unions, but he's a big friend of, you know, the labor, big labor, private sector unions. And the reason is because who pays their salaries? Who pays? And are we involved in the collective bargaining? No. And the unions can bankroll those with whom they can do the collective bargaining on the public in the public sector.
So it is a big issue. We really need to work on that right to work and make it. That's something we can do something about here in this state. See, that's not a national issue. That's a right here issue. Julian.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to point out that I think it's important to separate out private unions from public unions. You can go after...
It's not going after the union, just going after the right to work without being in the union. If a company chooses to have a private union, that's their choice. But I think we should have the right not to join a union, or not to have certain entities, certain companies that have to be unionized. That's my point.
Or if you're a contractor, you can only, and let's say you're working on a highway project, you've got to hire union workers. You can't hire people that aren't union.
Exactly.
Joe?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm a small business guy. I have some employees that are pretty high paid. They make better than union wages. We work hard, we work all through the year, and then the winter comes, sometimes the weather demands that we can't work. These guys get laid off, and they go to collect unemployment, which they pay into all year long, and the unemployment office tells them, no problem, here's your money. However, you have to look for a job, and if you don't look for that job every single day, then you lose your benefits. In other words, we don't want you working for this guy. Okay? And what happens is, if you're in a union, they don't have to look for a job. They can sit on their butt and collect the money and get, and because they're in the union will call when they have work. Well, I'll call when they have work too. And I'm sick of that. And so right to work is absolutely necessary in this state. It's killing us small business people.
Laura?
A few years ago, I took a class in signaling, flagging, because I want to do something outdoors, and I would like to, hold out the flag.
Go ahead.
But anyway, so I paid my $50 and I passed. I got a perfect score, and then the next thing was to look for a job as a flagger. Well, seeing that here in Spokane, it boiled down to this one labor union shop out of which Tim Ormsby works, and I would have to pay $20 a month just to be on the D list. The D list is for those who don't have any experience. The chances of getting a job is practically zilch, and yet they wanted me to pay $20 a month just to be on their waiting list, just in case something might show up.
And the only people that get the flag are union workers. It's pretty crazy. So anyway, right to work is an issue in this state that I think has legs.
Yep.
I want you to know some of big labor special privileges, because we just, I mean, I didn't know all of these. They're exempt from prosecution for union violence. They're exempt from anti-monopoly laws. They have the power to force employees to accept unwanted union representation. They have the power to collect forced union dues. They are unlimited and they don't have to disclose any electioneering. The ability of strikers to keep their jobs despite refusing to work. Right to trespass on an employer's private property. And union-only cartels on construction projects. And there's more. But, I mean, how many of you knew all this? It's pretty crazy. Okay, education. Who wants to read that top little part there?
Give me 4 years to teach the children, and the seed I have sown will never be uprooted.
Lenin. Spoken by a teacher. It's pretty crazy. We have our National Education Association. We have Early Learning, Head Start, Race to the Top, Common Core, and there's probably 20 other programs that we think are going to do something to take our children away from their parents, actually. And what we need to do is encourage and protect homeschooling and independent charter schools. We approve charter schools, but they aren't independent. So it really wasn't that great a step in any direction. It was just a little more of the same to keep people somewhat satisfied. So education is crucial, and I know Ann Edwards over there is a nationally recognized teacher with presidential awards. And she has set up homeschooling for her grandchildren and others, and I keep begging somehow to get my 4.5-year-old granddaughter adopted by them or something, and they haven't conceded yet. But if you can, keep your kids, and for those of us my age, your grandkids, out of government schools. Affordable care. We got a big problem here, and what I'm afraid of, and I don't know, Charles, you know more about the media than I do, but I'm afraid the more we keep talking about it, the more we keep bashing it, it's going to become so blasé that by the time the election comes along, people aren't really listening, unless we have some other big bombshells going along. But of course we have the rate hikes, the ACTS plans, increased premiums, fewer providers, lies and uncertainty. It's just not good. So I know a few months back Kurt Fackler was talking about the enrollment here in the state of Washington and the percentage that were going on to Medicaid. So they go on to the Help Finder thing, and I guess because of their income and things that way, they're just plopped immediately over into Medicaid. And I was trying to find some newer numbers. So I wrote to Roger Stark, who's the doctor who's in charge of the Medicare stuff for Washington Policy Center. And what I was asking him, at that point it reported that 89% of the people completing the exchange application have signed up for Medicaid. Do you have more current figures? The most recent numbers from 2/25/14, they show that 86% of enrollees are in the Medicaid program. About 1/3 of the Medicaid enrollees are in the new expanded Medicaid, where federal taxpayers will initially pay 100% of the costs, and after 6 years will pay 90%, and state taxpayers will pick up the remaining 10%. If a person qualifies for the original legacy Medicaid, regardless of when they sign up, the state will pay 43% of the costs, and the federal taxpayers will pay 57%, as they have in the past. Remember, though, that the state taxpayers are also federal taxpayers, so taxpayers are ultimately on the hook for the entire cost. So I want you to think about what that said. Let's say that the number was only 100,000. So that means that 86,000 are moved into Medicaid. Now you have, of that, where's my little numbers here? You have 28,380 that would be under the federal grant, in other words, the government paying for a lot of it, and 57,620 of them would be at the point where our state has to pay 43%. And as Matt Shea says, this is going to bankrupt the state of Washington. It's pretty crazy. That's what we've done. So healthcare is big, but I really think we need to focus on Washington, what's happening in Washington, how it's impacting us. When you look at some of the exemptions, I know Children's Hospital is exempt over in Seattle, along with Virginia Mason. In the state, right here in Spokane, for most of the plans, they are exempt. Sacred Heart, the Holy Family Hospitals, Providence Healthcare, are not participating. They're putting all the people over into Valley General and that kind of thing. So people don't have the ability to go where they want to go, use the doctors they want to go, that kind of thing. And it's only because the insurance companies can negotiate contracts with increased numbers to get lower amounts.
You might want to talk to...
That's not true. We accept all of those plans. We have people coming by taxi from Deaconess and Valley because we're a bigger care center and we can take care of them better.
Than Sacred Heart.
No, I am Sacred Heart.
You are Sacred Heart.
Yeah.
But what I understand is some of the policies that they're putting these folks into, when you look at who their providers are, they have negotiated with Valley General and Deaconess versus. So, you know, I guess we'd have to look at the plans.
I would really want to see that because
yeah.
Valley General and Deaconess are for-profit hospitals managed by Tennessee Corporation, CMS. Mm-hmm. They're not taking those.
Well, we'll have to take a peek at it because I looked at some of the policies. Well, I did look at some of the policies, and Sacred Heart and Holy Family were not allowed. So, goodness knows what I was looking at.
See them every day.
Well, that's good. I'm glad. And it wasn't the Medicaid ones. It was in sort of the bronze plans where people were paying.
Big row with Primera for a while, and that was just settled in February. And now our Providence home care, infusion, and hospital is taking those patients.
Yeah,
so.
Cool.
Cecily, here's my take, and I'm just a layman. I'm just some coding guy. But my take on that is you are nonprofit, okay? Right. So the administration, they don't want people that have a heart. They want people that are out for money and out for the profit. So they're going to negotiate the deal with these other people, and that's who they're going to shove them to, you see. So we understand that Providence has a great heart, and believe me, I know this. My mom had a heart attack, and she was in there going, oh my God, I can't afford this. And they wrote the bill off. You know, that's awesome. So the profit thing is huge, you know, and that's what they're doing. They're driven by profit, driven by money, driven by greed.
Yeah, and I have to admit, when
It makes them sound like they're doing wonderful things. I guess that's why I feel defensive about how much charity.
Right. And Helen, when I looked at this, I have to say it was November, December, and it was the Primera policies that I was looking at. So it's been settled great.
Cecily, I think the greater thing, what I hear from Helen, is the reimbursement level from Medicare and the insurance providers is not enough to keep any of these hospitals' doors open.
Right.
You run this out very long, we are not going to have any health care, period, because nobody will be able to afford to provide the health care.
Right. And they've already had a study that shows that just because a person now is covered by Medicaid doesn't reduce the numbers of times that they just go to emergency. They sort of look at emergency as their doctor. So, crazy. I got a bunch of hands up over here.
Before you leave the healthcare part, I didn't know if you wanted to reference what the IRS said this week about their intentions to collect the shared responsibility tax and all the ammo and guns that they've been acquiring. I didn't know if that shed any lights on it. That's rather serious.
I didn't know if that was real yet. I mean,
Well, then if it wasn't real, because it's been going around, I just heard about it the last couple of days. Did you hear about it? I heard it was...
I saw the piece on before it's news, but I kind of got my...
you
kind of get bitten a couple
It's on their website.
On that.
Yeah. They have all the rules on it.
Okay, yeah. Again, what we're bringing up here, guys, is there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff going around. It's got to be really researched.
Yeah.
You need to know what you're saying is correct, and we need to dig further into how all this is going to work.
Can you, I mean, look at the amount of information we've already talked about tonight, and I can tell you we spend plenty of time on it, too much time, and we don't have all the answers. That's why we need help. If we're really going to have a Tea Party that's going to have great information out there, we need people, we need you to step up and say, you know what, that's my point. I'm going to run on that thing. So we really need you to step up and make this your Tea Party. That's how, I mean, it's just too big, folks.
Okay, John, this is yours.
Mine? Oh, okay, well, this is the deal. Public facilities districts, public parks department, these people, they raise taxes without representation. Do you guys understand that? Bruce, do you know that? Do you know that, Bruce? I know Julian knows about it. You know, this is one of the things where my mentor, Clark Hager, he's been all over me. He says, you know, you got to get involved in the public facilities district. I know I talked to Kevin Paulson about this last year. This is a big issue that a lot of us just don't understand because we've got Republicans that are involved in it saying, this is great. But these people just get to determine on their own whether or not they're going to take over public property or private property, expand like the convention center downstairs, downtown, take it all the way out to the river, and charge it all to us. And if it doesn't make a profit, look at Wenatchee. When he started telling me about this, I plugged into Wenatchee. They're default. They're the first town that went and they defaulted on this thing. And that default is now rolling back on 7 counties up there. The people in 7 counties are going to pay for that. And I sure don't want that to happen here, but I know it's gonna because we are way upside down. So this is an issue here where somebody needs to really follow this and be able to report it and keep it up to date, because if we know what's going on, we're going to start writing letters to these people, we're going to start making a stink about it, and they will back off. The two, you know, I mentioned this before when we were having our other meetings, but here's what the Tea Party can do. You can only do 2 things. With enough numbers, with enough people, and your job, we're going to get into this because we're really kind of done with the issues here as we roll forward. Now we got to get into what we can do as a Tea Party. But what we can do is we can cause some pain. And if we don't cause any pain, we're not doing anything. About 2 months ago, Virginia Warren, who wanted to be here tonight, it just surprised me that she jumped back into the fray. But she called Tea Party Patriots. She says, I need to get a message out to everybody here in Washington because we got to go to Kathy McMorris' office, and we got to go raise some hell with her and tell her about this immigration bill. We're not going to stand for it. So the message went out, and the next day, 24 hours, there was 25 of us in that room. And I videotaped it, and we put it up on Northwest Grassroots YouTube page. It's there to view. And we immediately put up a Facebook page, Kathy McMorris Rogers - Enough is Enough. And I listed every one of her votes since she's been into office that were bad, and that they're mostly all bad, and in chronological order up to where we marched in the office. And what was fun about that to me was about 2 days later, her campaign was buying ads on Facebook. That's how it works. That's how social media works. She was spending money to boost her image because we were cutting into that. People were responding all the way from down, Tri-Cities area and all the way north, and it makes a difference. That's the point. That makes a difference. She doesn't want that kind of flack. Now, 25 people in the office on video is one thing, but 25 people in her office and 300 people in the street, that's different. That's different. And so we understand, because I'm like this, and we're not all activists. We don't all want to go out and wave signs. And besides that, now we got to go get permits to wave signs in many places. Okay, so and that'll just have to be the way it is because we don't want to break the law to do that, but we'll do that. But here's the point: if we have what the first Tea Party had, Jack here tells me that they're up to 7,000 people on that list. He was working with the membership. He's working with our membership. John, I'm sorry, it wasn't Jack, it was John. Okay, but you guys work together, okay. Hey, we got 2 membership guys here from the first Tea Party who are like, let's go bust this thing open, right? If we get 5,000 to 7,000 people in our membership, do you think out of that membership we might have 300 or 400 people who raise their hand and say, you know what, I want to be on the activist list? You know, when you want to wave signs, call on me. Right? And do you think when we've got a school issue going on here at a district office, they're going to be talking about Common Core, and Lori Rogers calls up and says, we're going to be speaking there tonight. I got myself and a couple other county people coming in for their Tea Parties to speak to these people. We need some help. And we put the call out, and we have 200 people standing outside that room. Do you think that's going to make a difference on that board? If it doesn't, we've got a hell of a problem. But the point is we can do this. We can do this if we reach out and make this thing happen. So that's what it's going to take. Now, I'm off my soapbox.
Great. So anyway, we will continue with Movie Night with the Grassroots. We think it is important education. However, guys, those of you that attend, bring guests. Yep. You know, bring guests. Young guests, preferably. You know, it does help.
Yeah, we don't want to put in a wheelchair section.
Right. Available to Tea Party Patriots. They really promote the teaching of the Center for Self-Governance, and that's a 5-course series that they really bring the teachers in and get it going. The Leadership Institute out of Washington, D.C., they teach on how to have effective events, how to get out the vote, media. The requirement is a certain number of participants and that we charge at least $25 a head. And then John and I have decided, and this is all up in the air for what you guys decide, but we think we need to have at least 3 large events a year. And so we did go ahead and arrange for the first one, which will be May 17th, and that'll be Joel Skousen. And then John Jacob Schmidt, and then we'll fill it in with 2 additional presentations, and it will be out on North Idaho Road, nice facility out there, and lunch will be included. So that's something that's pretty well formulated. Just need to clean it up a little bit and get the information out. I was really glad to see Charles Rowe here, only because what I get concerned with is how do we get the Tea Party talked about in the media without being slammed. And I do think one of the things is we need to be extremely respectful when we do demonstrate. We don't want crude signs and crude dress and that kind of thing. But you're a lot more familiar with the media in this town. Is it a lost cause?
No. No, it's not a lost cause.
Quote you on that.
So just let us know a little bit about what we need to be heading toward.
Well, it's not easy. The media in this town is a little more conservative than it is in a lot of other markets this size. We have friends there, not as many as we'd like. More and more of these kids coming out of college are brainwashed. And a lot of them, they come into the newsroom, you say, what brings you here? Why do you want to be a part of the news media? The answer usually is, I want to make a difference. Well, that's not your job. Your job is to report what the hell's going on, not what you wish would happen. But I digress. But I do have friends there, and I'm friends with all 3 news directors in town. At least I have a speaking relation with them. And so they do take my calls, and they answer my emails. So, yeah, I think we got a foot in the door. I mean, if I can be of any help in that regard, I'd be happy to do it.
Well, I think...
On the list, John.
Well, we need all the help we can get, guys, because that is one thing. You know, how many of you write letters to the editor that never get published? You know, it's you know, that kind of thing. It just is difficult. So it is interesting. So anyway, some of the things and what you guys have got are you have a form. On one side is a membership, and on the other side is sort of checking off all areas that you're interested in. And you know, a speakers bureau. It's important that we have folks always looking for speakers for us. And I know Jeff Baxter's done a good job working with Mike Fagan on the radio show, so I'm going to incorporate both of them to shoot us some folks too and ideas and things that way. But as you're out in your different community events and doing things, hey, feed us information. Who would be a good speaker?
And
need to have a nice speakers bureau.
And another point off of that came from John Baxter when we were talking at our house a couple weeks ago. It was a great idea. Was, you know, as we build this base and as we bring these people in, that's the first prong. I mean, we've got to get the numbers in here so that we have some effectiveness. But from those numbers, we're going to find people. We need to reach out and find people who really have a heart for this, that they're passionate about doing something about this. And what John suggested is we really kind of need to have our own Toastmasters. We need to be able to help these people to learn how to talk to people, to learn how to speak, to practice in front of their peers and become, you know, qualified to be able to walk into an elected person's office and be able to give something to them and be succinct and not be somebody they're going to brush off. Because they brush off. I certainly had that happen to me. I'm just callous enough, I just point it back out to them and say, what's the matter with me? You can't listen to me? You know, but that takes years, I mean, to get to that point where you can handle that. So having that as a speaker's area is important too. And from that, we've got to find the most important key to this whole solution is we've got to have candidates. Everybody in this room understands we will not change anything. I'm talking about change. I'm not talking about slowing it down. The first prong is people, numbers, causing concern and slowing things down. That's one part. But nothing changes unless we replace those people. So that's the important part. Judge, you wanted to say something.
Well, you mentioned Toastmasters. You know, it doesn't take forever to become a good speaker. You can do it in 6 months by going to one of the local Toastmaster groups. They are fantastic. The dues are low. You can buy coffee or a lunch or a dinner, whatever it is, or not buy. Hey, it's one of the cheapest ways ever to be able to speak on your feet.
I really appreciate that.
When I first got into it, I was a practicing lawyer. I was okay in court, but any place else I was like, my God, I couldn't even remember what I was going to say next. And I wouldn't have recognized my mother 5 feet away because I just had, hey, Toastmasters will do it. You don't have to form your own club. There are half a dozen in Spokane. Just start going if you want to talk.
So you can see the idea here that if, we got all kinds of hands
Kevin?
up. Go ahead, Kevin.
I wanted to say, I'm in a Toastmaster club. I've been in one for 22 years now, 23. We meet at 6:30 a.m. Tuesday morning, right downtown. It's Something Else Deli. I can get you the list. There's over 20 clubs.
What's the name of your club?
Area. I think with Spokane to Coeur d'Alene, maybe like 30 clubs.
Wow, amazing.
What's the name of your club?
What's the name of your club?
Our club is Cavalier.
That's where I was.
Woohoo!
10 years. And we have a great core group. There's about 15 of us. And we love new members. You get a manual. You work through that manual. We try to get the new members speaking. Seriously, anybody that's interested in Toastmasters, the organization is there. Our club is so conservative that usually women don't stick around very long, liberals don't stick around very long, and that's not by choice, that's just how our club is. It's a group of conservative people. I'm sure there's other clubs that aren't as conservative as ours. My point being, infiltrate every one of those clubs. You've got people who come to hear live speeches every morning or every evening, whenever they meet. They want to hear a live speech. They want to hear current topics. You can take each and every one of these topics and make a speech, and you'll have a lot of fun with it. And successfully, I can get you a list of all of them.
Great. And I want you all to acknowledge Kevin. He's the past president of CAPER. He's now, I believe, the vice president. And we're really going to count on your group to feed us property rights issues, because there's a lot of them coming up, especially the water stuff and things that way.
And
So.
also notice how he could speak up and everybody could hear him.
One other announcement where you mentioned cable. Citizens Alliance for Property Rights. The state meeting is the weekend of March 15th. It's at the Doubletree Hotel at South Center. They bring in world-class presenters. They bring in liberal Democrats who are gay, who have written books, and they've discovered that property rights are the issue, and they are pro-property rights. I mean, they go all over bringing these great speakers. You'll have 3 or 4 world-class speakers. The gal last year, Elizabeth Nixon, she wrote a book, and the book is Eco-Fascist. She was raised as a liberal media person. She worked for Times Magazine. She was an editor in Great Britain, or the United Kingdom. She bought a property in the Puget Sound on a small island, and she found out about property rights, and she called it out in her book, Eco-Fascist.
Great.
Elizabeth Nixon, excuse
I
me.
have Rob with his hand up for a long time.
Well, yeah, you get a Toastmaster going, you know, you just can't shut it down.
Very true.
If Tuesday morning doesn't work for you, I go to Toastmasters Club on Wednesday morning. It's a sunrise club. We meet at Frankie Doodle, 6:30 a.m. on Wednesday. We've had people come through. Tim Ben, Jeff Foley, Mike Fagan, John Ahern, Rob Chase, you know, a number of luminaries like that.
Oh, he's telling you where to go.
Oh, but it's got kind of has a conservative bent, but it's a good place to learn how to speak, and it's done wonders for myself.
Great.
Something else John alluded to quickly was I interviewed on my radio program a couple of years ago the head of the Occupy Wall Street group, and really there's only 2 things we disagreed on, and that was gun control and socialized medicine. Other than that, we were pretty close. So I agree with a lot of those people more than I agree with a lot of people who say they're Republicans. You know.
Okay, thank you. You warned me about these Toastmaster people talking too long,
that's
so
right.
we're going to move on. Gary?
Not only that, she's part of your campaign.
Gary?
You're going to keep your foot out of your mouth.
They only missed out gun control and healthcare.
My art, small. When I was starting college, I got involved in a group in Southern California called the Paul Revere Chapter, very conservative. We had a number of people that we were all meeting together to get them going into public office. But they also had some young people in there, in the colleges and that. So I think that having something that trains our own people, that knows our agenda, is extremely important. We could perhaps start with some of these others to learn the ropes. We need to start our own. We need to include young people, maybe homeschoolers, get them to think as being leaders.
Great.
They've been taught, but they've never been given the opportunity to lead. So let's teach them. By the way, we had people in that club that included a congressman, a man that was a state senator, a man that ran for president of the American Independence Party, people that were involved in county politics.
Great.
All the way along. We need our own club.
Thank you.
We do.
So again, you know, looking at communication, again, we've talked about how important it is to really know our numbers, so a membership database, a phone tree, so if something is needed right away, that we can do a quick phone call and get things out there. You know, press releases, editorial standards, social networking, Meetup, Facebook, Twitter.
You didn't like the ham radio part?
Oh, well, you know, it's just that, you know, we do need to utilize all of the avenues that are available to us. And I know I talked to a lot of people tonight. I don't Facebook, I don't Twitter, I don't this, I don't that. Well, you know, a whole ton of people do. So we'll work with those that do and get the word out to a lot more folks.
I think it's also important, though, to acknowledge that if the internet goes down, then what do you do?
Rejoice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just want to make sure that when the rioting's going on in your neighborhood, I'd like to know at 2:30 in the afternoon when I turn on my ham radio, somebody's going to tell me, so I know how far away they are from me. That's what I'm looking for. I think we really need to be serious about the fact that if we're not prepared, we're not going to be prepared.
Okay, talking about membership in the Tea Party is free. If any of you feel as if it's okay with you and within what you want to do, and do a sustaining membership of $10 a month or more, hey, that's wonderful, but absolutely not necessary. And then one of the things that we need to do, besides getting straddled with the Spokane Tea Party, they also made us Eastern Washington State coordinators. So we need to coordinate, and that means throughout Eastern Washington, but also let's reach out to Idaho and Montana and see what we can do as far as our readout area goes.
And that's
so
why
pretty
we
cool.
decided to bring Joel Skousen and John Shagos-Smith in first for the first big event, because we know that that's the readout. That's the area where we can build a stronghold of like-minded individuals. I'd like to say something on the fundraising really quick that's up here on the wall. These are the areas that we broke it down into. You know, when people say, well, okay, I joined this club or whatever, and you know, some people just charge an annual fee for membership. I don't want to do that. This is our Tea Party. We need to understand that. When we look down this, these are typical things. We're going to have operation expenses like the office equipment. The bulb in that projector is $350. That's amazing, you know, and I don't run around with a spare. So if we're at a big event and that thing goes out, we're done. And that's not a great feeling. I would like to have a spare. But that's what goes on. Advertising. We're going to need to advertise this Tea Party to get large numbers. You know, I mean, besides what Jack and John and others are going to be able to pull off here to build this base back up, we need to let the public know that the Tea Party's back. We're going to have to pick good times. We're going to have to pick issues. I like Charles's head's bobbing over there. We got to be able to plan this out and be able to be strategic in how we grow this group. That's going to take advertising dollars. And that will have the membership drive, okay? We need education training. We've got a whole plan of attack to do with PCOs. Now, are we working with the Republican Party? Or are we working with the Democrat Party? We are working with the Republican Party because they closely match the platform. They're the ones that aren't abiding by the platform. Trust me, I've worked on that platform for years. They don't abide by it, but we do. So if we're going to be involved in actually making a change in politics, we're going to have to work within that sphere of influence. So we want to teach PCOs the strategy. They're not taught that. PCOs are told, just sign up here. All you have to do is go to the reorg meeting and vote for chair, and you're done. That's not the deal. That is not the deal. So we're going to make sure that we have an effective program for teaching PCOs. I was a district leader prior to Judy Crowder coming in and taking my place so I could get a breath of air and pull away, and Judy's done a great job. But we really need we need to be able to provide this, because as we build our membership, you'll notice on our membership list, we're looking for addresses. Why? We didn't put it on there, so we want to put it. But we want to find out where they live. Why? We want to find out who their PCO is.
Or if there's an empty precinct.
If they're an empty precinct, that's great. If they're not in an empty precinct, who's their PCO? Where are they with? We might want them to run against them. We want to change the makeup of Spokane County.
Or redirect them. Sometimes that's
well, that's good. Okay, she wants to redirect them. I'd rather just take them out. But that's all right. I understand what she's saying. But the point is that we need to know where they're living so that they know who they're working with, and we can start to make changes at that level. If we don't play in that part, we're not going to do anything. All we need to do then is start, getting our own ammunition and building a bunker. So I'd rather see if we can do something about it, okay? And then the large events. Large events cost money. To rent the facility down there in front of the convention center on the park with the little floating stage, the city 2.5 years ago, that was $2,500 to be able to rent that, not including the electricity, not including so it's about $3,500.
Not including the sound.
Yeah, they brought their own sound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and of course, then if you're going to have any speakers, you're going to have that. Now, I will tell you that Joel Skousen, I was just amazed. He's a different kind of guy, and I like that. He's flying here from Utah in his own plane because he won't take the TSA route and he won't have the groping. So I was, what's that going to cost us? So I'll tell you, for that event we're putting on, he's charging us $500 a speak, and he told me it would take about $300 worth of fuel to get here and back. Now, isn't that sweet? I mean, it is awesome. And we want to take that energy. We want to take that guy. I mean, the ones of you who have heard him, he's fantastic. But we want to use him to bring people from western Montana, from northern Idaho, and the northern counties, and bring them down here to Spokane and let them show that we have an effective Tea Party. We want to encourage them to do the same. We've got to make the stand this year, guys. We've got to do it before election. Rod.
Anybody wants to hear Joel Scalzo, 106.5, the American Christian Network, Thursdays at 4 o'clock with Dr. Stan Monteith. Every week he's usually there. That's where I caught him. He will be an excellent speaker.
Yes, good.
I wrote fairandfree.com in his website.
Yeah. And again, fundraising ideas. We're looking at, obviously, events. Raffles. Only charitable nonprofit organizations can do raffles in the state of Washington. However, you can partner with a nonprofit organization. And the place I came up with the idea a long time ago was Mitch Short talking about how the 7th District could partner with the NRA and have a raffle for like a gun safe with a nice rifle, a nice shotgun, and a nice pistol in it. Sell those tickets for $100 a shot, and you split the money with the NRA. So we can do things like that. But as how we stand, and guys, it's going to be up to you, but my feeling is that this should not be a 501c anything kind of organization. We can pay taxes and we can do whatever darn well we want to do, but forget all the stuff that they want to hang on you because you want to be, quote, tax exempt. I think every church should stop being tax exempt.
You can be a federal nonprofit stuff, and then you can do your own.
That's a good thing to know. So anyway, we need to look into it, but I think there are raffle things that you can do that could be a lot of fun. Something they brought up was scripts. I think it sounds like a lot of work. Northwest Christian does it. We could get into that, and obviously we need more ideas. Tea Party does provide promotional items. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, and jackets, hats, and flags, which we pay for, but they're fairly inexpensive, and then of course you mark them up a little. And then I brought sort of samples of some of their giveaway things tonight, so you can get an idea of those. So again, I know we are going to be at the gun show again in April. Good place to meet Second Amendment kind of people, things that way. And we'll keep developing the list there. That thing only costs $60, but it's 3 days. We need people to help man it. So again, that would be something that we need to know on your sheets, you know, just what are you willing to do. So there's a good comment area there. It might be more than, the last one was 60, this one's 3 days, so it might be a little more. 80, okay. So those are the free items that they provide. And just remember that we're at war with Karl Rove and the National Chamber of Commerce and Marketplace and all that, American Crossroads and all of those. They've determined that it's worth putting money in to defeat constitutional candidates and incumbents. It's pretty darn crazy. And we're experiencing some of that here in town. We have... how many of you would agree that Matt Shea is a constitutional conservative representative? So the Republican Party is proposing Joshua Aratola to take him out. Aratola.
So this is really an important thing. This Republican Main Street Partnership is the one that's affiliated with George Soros. This Steve LaTourette worked with John Boehner. He was a congressman, and he runs the Republican Main Street Partnership and the Defending Main Street PAC. Now, we didn't put we didn't put it all up here, but I sent it out earlier. But it's amazing. It's just, I mean, it's astounding to see the list of donors to this PAC. And in our area here, Kathy McMorris Rogers, Jamie Herrera, and I forget the other guy's name, but 3 congressmen from our state are co-sponsors of this PAC to put us out. I mean, you really got to be astounded at that. And they've already raised millions of dollars, and the money's coming from Democrat unions.
And Indian reservations.
And Indian, well, there's a small one from the Indian reservations, but you know, it's just astounding to me that that's the way this direction's going. So they may smile good, may look good, it's all about conservative values, but boy, I'll tell you what, they're not my values. They're just aren't.
Okay, so we need to grow the base. We've talked about that. To be heard, we need the numbers. And as John said, that's what causes the pushback. That's what causes people to stop and pay a little bit more attention to you. So you can sign up at Northwest Grassroots, I think. What have you done to the website?
Not a thing.
I thought you were going to put it under construction.
Well, we didn't know if it was going to show up.
Oh, okay.
You know? Now that's kind of silly, guys, but honestly, you know, the reason we sent out the RSVP, and we've learned that nobody bothers to do that, but we got about 40 people back. We got 40 people who said, yeah, we'll be there, and we got a bunch who said that they wouldn't, but we really invited a lot of people. And really, the ones that said they wouldn't, I want to tell you, they didn't say they wouldn't. They said they couldn't, and they would be here. So
right, there's a trash planning meeting for Spokane Valley tonight.
There's all kinds of things
a lot
tonight.
of different things going on.
There's all kinds of things. So there's nothing there, but we just didn't know, so we didn't bother. We just said, let's just keep the foot off the gas and see what you want to do. That's the deal. Because I will tell you, last December, I haven't told all you this, but last December when Tina closed down the event center and we knew that was coming, we were ready to just bag it. Because like so many small groups, how many small groups we got here in town? I think I put a calendar together, and there's got to be at least a dozen that are actually scheduled meetings that have 10 or 15 people show up. And individually, nobody's having any effect. That's the way I see it anyway. And it's nice to get together and have a banter session. And I think that that's relevant because when we look at our issues, many of these issues are groups. Those are group issues where they can really get into the meat of it. But if we're going to make a difference, we need to have a lot of numbers, or it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We're not going to have large numbers to make a difference and push back, and we're not going to have a large number from which to grow the base of people who want to run for office. That's what we've got to have. If we don't have that, we're screwed. Okay? So as far as the website goes, Deborah, she was like, you know, this is great, so she's on board with it, and I just said, let's just wait and see what happens. I mean, because if nobody wants to do anything, there's no point. So this is really up to you guys to spread the word and to get other people involved and see what we want to do, because if you don't want to do it, then it's time just to build bunkers. That's how I see it.
Okay. There are a few people. There are a couple people I do want to recognize. We talked about Judy, who actually is a district leader, but she's also taught how many Constitution classes in town have you handled now? Just 4. I mean, you know, they're how long? 6 weeks, 8 weeks, you know, just 4. Bruce Thompson is a district leader in the 6th district. Joe Collins is an ex-district leader. Rob Chase, of course, treasurer. Bob Strong here represents Act for America. And guys, the Muslim problem that we have in the United States is scarier than heck. I think you remember movie night last year. We did 2 of them. You know, the Grand Deception, the Great American Jihad, and the Project. Probably need to show them again. But it is, we got a lot of stuff going on right here in River City. So I appreciate you that, you know, Laurel, I think, is the longest standing member in Spokane County of the John Birch Society.
I thought you just meant longest standing.
And so, you know, we have some great people here in the room. Dave White is district leader in the 3rd district. And we have Julian Hale and the 7th district leaders. So, and as I mentioned, Kevin Paulson, who is with Caper, and Jack.
Martin Hauser is the founder of North Spokane, Kansas.
Oh, is he really? I didn't know that. Hey. And of course we've got Jack and Barb here, and I think they try to keep Mike in line, so that's good. So again, I thank you all for being here. Fill out those sheets, put comments down. We've missed stuff, I'm sure. So what we've missed, throw some ideas down. The email address, and we both get it, is nwgrassroots@gmail.com. nwgrassroots@gmail.com. So if you come up with ideas, please email us. And somebody's waving their hand.
One question.
Go fire away.
And it's beside the point. There was.
I didn't write it on here. I should have.
Christianity. Does anybody know what the story is with that? There was some.
I do. And if you go, you should go to the website. It is the Seventh-day Adventists, and there's a free 10-week lessons on the negative impact of Islam and all that kind of great information. Well, it's 10 lessons that you can take one a week if you want to.
Yeah.
Those are the billboards. Yeah.
Yeah.
You thought it was Christendom, didn't you? Right. So again, guys, it's nwgrassroots@gmail.com. Please write that down on the sheet that you're going to keep. And that's my, and John gets them, I get them, and it really would help. Edie's volunteered to be the treasurer of this organization, and she also has something to say.
Next meeting.
Turn it on for us.
We don't know, but we'll do Northwest Grassroots on March 11th.
Gotta turn it on. Hold it up to your lips. Kiss it. Okay.
You need to announce it. People need to know.
I can't hear you.
Lisa already put a Facebook thing out on her Facebook saying that there's this huge group out here for the Tea Party starting up again. But there's no young, I'm the only young person, she said. Wrong.
What about before she got here?
You know, the problem with our group is our kids are either dumb and their kids aren't old enough to think yet, so.
Yeah. People
A lot of you
after going, who, where?
Well, yeah, no, essentially that is a question I had. I already have some friends replying to that, asking about the next meeting and telling them about Joel Skousen in May. But we need to get a Facebook group together. We need to get these events put up there on Facebook so that those of us who are on Facebook can forward those to our other friends.
Right.
That's where the file.
And how many of you feel that we should add a second meeting? We have, Northwest Grassroots has done movie night on the second Tuesday of the month, so we could either cut out movie night and turn it into a tea party, or we could do movie night and another meeting, which is tea party. So
Can you do it earlier? I mean, could you?
well, right. I mean, we could. Yeah, movie normally doesn't start till 7.
Yeah.
So we could do before, but you know.
Your movies are awesome. The educational opportunities they're really.
So again, those are comments. I want you guys to write this down. We don't know what we're doing until we go through all these sheets.
And see what you guys reply with.
See what you want.
Can I make a suggestion here?
Edie has something more to say. Gary has his hand up.
One more thing, and then here's the deal. If we've all been sitting here for a couple hours, people have eaten, they've had a lot of drink, people need to use the restroom and all that. If you'd like, we could just take a break. Take care of that, and whoever needs to leave, if you fill out the membership information, great. And if you want to come back and round up a little bit and really get in here and discuss some of this, I'd like to do that. This bar is not going to close for a couple hours, so we can stay here.
First, please announce what time March 11th you want everybody to come back.
Well, we always start.
Another meeting. I'm sorry.
We always start movie night at 5:30. How it normally has worked is at 6:15 we do what we call open microphone, general announcements, things that people have in their mind, ask candidates or people to come speak. I don't care if they're Democrats or Republicans or whatever, anybody can come speak, cover that kind of thing, and then around 7 we start the movie. So we might adjust that kind of time, but we're always here and ready to go at 5:30. And we will be here in this facility March 11th.